A new NPR investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor and that some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime. I want to start with this NPR reporting that the Justice Department withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor, which we should say the White House denies. What stands out to you about it?
Well, I think what stands out is that we don't have the reports, even though we know they exist. This stems from an interview that they conducted that came out of a tip to the FBI about this woman who has said that when she was 13, that she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump.
Hey, fam. Adam is here. There are moments in American history that get sealed into the permanent record not because of what they accomplish, but because of what they expose. This is one of those moments. What just happened on the floor of the United States House of Representatives is going to follow every single person involved for the rest of their political lives.
Because they have the power. We have but one power that we can use without the consent of the other side. That one power is impeachment. One power. The power to impeach. And we are in a countdown. We're in a countdown because whether the president likes it or not, whether I like it or not, the people of the country want to see him impeached. And whether he likes it or not, or whether I like it or not, or anybody else, he is going to be impeached before he leaves office again. And he should be, for what he has done to the country in terms of its devolution into authoritarianism.
The words that were spoken, the accusations that were leveled, and the vote that was taken are now etched into the official congressional archive forever. A sitting member of Congress, Representative Al Green of Texas, rose from his seat on the House floor and did something that has only happened a handful of times in the history of the Republic. He introduced a formal resolution to impeach the President of the United States.
He should be impeached. And Mr. President, you will be impeached for your dastardly deeds done and for the way you have demeaned the presidency, the way you have harmed society with your behavior. You should be impeached. And I say to you, I would, without question, reservation, or hesitation, given the opportunity, bring the articles of impeachment to have him at least impeached. I would hope that the Senate would act and remove him from office. But even if the Senate chooses not to act, we should proceed with our countdown to impeachment and impeach him. Because it's that impeachment that will make the difference in the lives of the people of this country.
For the third time, this is not the impeachment you remember from the first term. This is not about Ukraine. This is not about January 6th. This is a brand new Congress, a brand new presidential term, and a brand new set of charges that accuse Donald Trump of committing high crimes and misdemeanors right now, in real time, while in office. The charge? Ordering the bombing of Iranian nuclear sites without ever asking Congress for permission. The resolution says Trump usurped Congress's constitutional power to declare war. It says he violated the separation of powers. And then it uses a phrase that stopped everyone in the chamber cold. It accuses the president of devolving American democracy into authoritarianism. Those words are not a tweet. They are not a cable news chyron. They are written into an official House document, House Resolution 537, filed, numbered, permanent. And while members of Congress stood at microphones on the floor debating whether the President of the United States had abused his power in ways that threatened the constitutional order itself, where was Donald Trump, the man who never misses a camera, the man who turns every news cycle into a referendum on himself, the man who built his entire political identity on fighting back, punching harder, and never ever hiding from a confrontation? He was invisible all day. while the House of Representatives debated whether he had committed impeachable offenses, while his own party members were forced to go on the record about whether to even look at the evidence, while Democrats stood on the floor and accused him of dragging the country toward authoritarian rule, Trump disappeared. No press conference, no surprise appearance in the briefing room, no furious social media barrage, no demands for loyalty, nothing. Silence. The man who has an opinion about literally everything chose the day the House voted on his impeachment to have no opinion at all. He hid. And here is the thing that should make your stomach turn, because the procedural outcome is not the story. Yes, Republican leadership moved to table the resolution. Yes, the motion to table passed. Yes, the impeachment effort was killed before the House ever took a direct up or down vote on whether Trump actually committed those high crimes. That is what happened on paper. But paper is not the whole story. The whole story is that a formal resolution accusing the President of the United States of impeachable offenses was introduced, debated, and voted on by the full House of Representatives. Every single member had to pick a side. Every single vote was recorded. Every floor speech is preserved in the congressional record forever, and the text of that resolution, with its detailed accusations about unauthorized military strikes, war powers violations, and authoritarian governance, is now a permanent document in the archives of the United States Congress. Tabling a resolution does not delete it. Tabling does not erase the accusations. Tabling does not undo the fact that a sitting Congress formally debated whether the president's conduct rose to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors. The resolution exists. The vote happened. The accusations are in writing, and the roll call showing exactly which members voted to table and which voted to proceed is available for every voter, every journalist, every historian, and every future Congress to examine for the rest of American history. Republicans chose to bury the resolution rather than debate it on the merits. But the resolution and everything it says about Trump's conduct is not buried. It is public. It is permanent. And if you actually read what it says, it is devastating. So let's walk through exactly what House Resolution 537 accuses the president of doing, because the details matter. These are not talking points. These are not campaign ads. These are formal charges drafted in legal language and introduced through the constitutional process the founders created specifically for moments like this. The resolution accuses Trump of ordering United States military forces to bomb Iranian nuclear sites without obtaining congressional authorization and without providing Congress with the proper notification required by federal law. This is not a minor procedural complaint. The Constitution of the United States explicitly grants the power to declare war to Congress, not to the President. Article 1, Section 8. It is one of the most fundamental separations of power in the entire constitutional framework. The founders were deeply, almost obsessively concerned about concentrating the power to wage war in the hands of a single executive. They had lived under a king who could send armies to fight wherever he pleased without consulting anyone, and they designed a system that was supposed to prevent any American president from ever doing the same thing. The president commands the military, but Congress decides when and where that military is used. That is not a suggestion. That is the constitutional structure that every president has operated under for nearly 250 years. And Trump, according to the resolution, ignored it. He ordered the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities, one of the most consequential military actions a president can take, an action with the potential to trigger a full-scale war with a major regional power, without going to Congress first, without asking for authorization, without even providing the notice that existing law requires when a president takes military action in an emergency. The resolution details how Trump bypassed the constitutional framework entirely, making a unilateral decision to strike a sovereign nation's nuclear infrastructure based on his own assessment of the threat, without the debate, the deliberation, and the democratic accountability that the Constitution demands. And the resolution frames this not as a policy disagreement about Iran's strategy, but as a constitutional violation. An abuse of presidential power, a usurpation of Congress's most important check on executive authority, and in the most charged language in the document, an act that devolves American democracy into authoritarianism. That phrase is worth sitting with, because that is not the kind of language that appears in routine political documents. Impeachment resolutions are drafted by attorneys. They go through legal review. Every word is chosen carefully because the document becomes part of the official record of presidential conduct, and the attorneys who drafted this resolution chose to include language that explicitly accuses the president of moving the country toward authoritarian governance. They are saying in a formal legal document filed with the United States House of Representatives that the president's decision to wage war without congressional approval is not just a constitutional violation, but a step toward a form of government where the executive acts without democratic constraints, where the president does what he wants, when he wants, without asking permission from the people's elected representatives. That is what authoritarianism means. And that is what the resolution accuses Trump of practicing, not in some future hypothetical scenario. Right now. Through the specific act of bombing Iran without congressional authorization. And here is where the Republican response becomes particularly revealing, because instead of allowing the House to debate the merits of the impeachment articles and vote them up or down, GOP leadership moved immediately to table the resolution. Tabling is a procedural maneuver. It allows the majority party to kill a resolution without ever engaging with its substance. No debate on the specific charges, no examination of the evidence, no opportunity for members to explain why the president's conduct was or was not impeachable. Just a straight procedural vote. Do we set this aside or do we take it up? And the motion to table passed on a roll call vote, with the Republican majority voting to bury the resolution without a substantive hearing. Now, on one level, that is simply how the majority party exercises control of the floor. They have the votes. They get to decide what comes up for debate and what gets set aside. It happens with bills and resolutions all the time. But in the context of an impeachment resolution, tabling has a specific political meaning that is different from tabling a routine bill. Because impeachment is a constitutional process, it is the mechanism the founders created for holding a president accountable for abuses of power. And when the majority party tables an impeachment resolution, they are making a choice. They are choosing not to examine the evidence. They are choosing not to debate the charges. They are choosing not to put themselves on record as either defending or condemning the president's specific conduct. They are choosing procedure over substance. And that choice, while legally effective, is politically damning, because it tells the American people that the majority party would rather avoid the conversation entirely than risk what might happen if they actually had it. And look, everyone in that chamber knew the resolution was not going to result in Trump being removed from office. In a Republican-controlled House, there was never a realistic path to impeachment, let alone removal through a Senate trial. That was never the point. The point was to ensure that when historians write the account of this presidency, when future Congresses examine the precedents set by this administration, when voters assess whether their representatives held the president accountable, the record shows that impeachment articles were filed, that the charges were specific and serious, that the accusations reached the floor of the House, and that the majority party chose to bury them rather than address them. That record exists now. It cannot be erased, and it will be referenced every time the question of presidential accountability during Trump's second term is raised for the rest of American history. So let's connect this to the bigger picture, because House Resolution 537 does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in the context of 2 prior impeachments and multiple additional impeachment resolutions that have been filed across several Congresses. Trump was impeached in 2019 over his efforts to pressure Ukraine into investigating his political rival. He was impeached again in 2021 over his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And now, in his second term, he faces new impeachment articles over unauthorized military strikes on Iran. 3 impeachment efforts across 2 terms, each one addressing a different alleged abuse of power. Each one generating its own set of formal charges, floor debates, and recorded votes. No president in American history has faced this level of sustained impeachment activity. And while Trump and his supporters dismiss each effort as a political stunt, The cumulative weight of 3 separate impeachment proceedings, each addressing distinct constitutional violations, creates a body of formal congressional accusation that is unprecedented in its scope and severity. 1 impeachment can be dismissed as partisan overreach. 2 starts to look like a pattern. 3, across 2 terms over 3 different categories of alleged misconduct, looks like a presidency that is fundamentally at odds with the constitutional constraints that are supposed to govern it. And that brings us back to Trump, hiding all day while the House debated whether to impeach him. The fighter who never misses a chance to punch back chose silence. The man who dominates every news cycle chose invisibility. The president who demands loyalty from every Republican in Washington let his allies bury the charges through a procedural vote rather than facing them head-on. That is not the behavior of a president who is confident the charges are baseless. That is the behavior of a president whose team knows the substance of the accusations is difficult to defend on the merits, because the constitutional text is clear. Congress has the power to declare war, and Trump did not go to Congress before ordering strikes on Iran. Those facts are not in dispute. And engaging with them publicly, debating them on camera, being forced to articulate a constitutional justification for bypassing Congress would have created exactly the kind of substantive confrontation Trump's team wanted to avoid. Better to stay silent. Better to let the procedural vote kill the resolution. Better to hope the story fades. But it won't fade, because the resolution is filed, the text is public, the accusations are in the congressional record, and the roll call shows every member who voted to bury impeachment articles rather than debate whether the president violated the Constitution by waging unauthorized war. 3 impeachment proceedings across 2 terms: Ukraine, January 6th, Iran. Each one documenting a different alleged abuse of power, each one generating formal charges and recorded votes, each one adding another chapter to the most extensive record of congressional accusation ever compiled against any American president. Republicans tabled the resolution. They did not table the truth. The charges are in the record. The accusations are in writing. And the president who hid all day while Congress debated his conduct left behind something he cannot hide from: a permanent document accusing him of authoritarian governance, filed in the archives of the institution the founders created specifically to hold presidents like him accountable. Stay tuned.